Welcome to this webinar on industrialization and its pivotal role in today's business. This webinar is brought to you by Philips Engineering Solutions. My name is Bas Klaver. But before we start, I'd like to share a few organizational aspects with you. The first one of which, this webinar will be recorded, and the recording, together with the slides that we are using, will be published on the landing page, the same page where you registered for the webinar. So it is available as of tomorrow for you to download so that you can share the contents with your colleagues and for future reference. And the other remark I'd like to make is that we do a Q&A session after the webinar. So you have time to ask your questions then, but you can already register your questions in the Q&A box. There's a button right next to the leave button in the upper corner of your screen, so make sure you touch the right button and you can post your questions there, and we will see how we can answer them as quickly as possible. So that is the organizational aspect. The webinar is brought to you by two colleagues of mine, Tabe Aardema. We can see his image on the next slide, maybe. Tabe is a senior consultant in supply chain management, and my colleague Yosef is a consultant on operations management. Between the two, they have decades of experience in this industrialization process, so we can nicely benefit from that today in this webinar. I will briefly talk you through the agenda now. We will start a bit of introduction about Philips Engineering Solutions very briefly. And then we will start the actual webinar with trends we see in the market, challenges that we know our customers face in today's business, and how the trends and challenges translate into the pivotal role of industrialization. We will talk about the approach to industrialization and the actual process steps, the sequence, and we will also share learnings from practice with you about operations strategy, but also organizational aspects, which is covered by the industrialization matrix. We will finish off with two use cases to demonstrate the value of this process in practice. And then after that, there's of course the Q&A session. So briefly about Philips Engineering Solutions. We are an independent group within Royal Philips. We support the Philips businesses with product innovation, manufacturing questions, that type of work, but we also work for external customers, external from the perspective of Philips, of course. We are about 1,000 people, and 40% of which work for external customers on the external market, so it's an important activity for us to make sure we keep up with the technology trends in the market and keep our capabilities at the correct level. We operate globally. We have 6 locations worldwide, and we serve our customers from what we call from idea to market. So it's really an end-to-end proposition we have. I won't go into details at this moment. I invite you to visit our website for further details. So that is a bit an explanation about Philips Engineering Solutions. With that, I'd like to hand over to my colleague Yosef to start the actual webinar, and over to you, Ram.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Bas. Very excited to be here and to talk about this broad topic about industrialization. But because it's such a broad topic, maybe let me first set the context and make sure we all look through the same lenses today. So when we talk about industrialization, we do not only mean new product introduction. With industrialization, we rather consider the entire operational journey of a product. So this starts before, far before, and it's also going beyond the initial product introduction. So it really includes the entire product life cycle. It can also include later changes like increasing capacity or transferring production from one plant to another. So it's really a much broader topic than just introducing new products to the market. So as businesses today are dealing with increased complexity and volatility, rethinking the industrialization process or approach is becoming really essential to reach corporate objectives. And on top of those external factors that we see, we also observe new trends, an increasing number of mostly unexpected disruptions that are impacting entire supply chains. Many of us think or feel like it's something that started with COVID, but it's not. We are seeing that our clients are struggling with those kind of things already for years, but COVID certainly increased the challenges and the pressure those companies, our clients, are dealing with today. So in the supply chain operations domain, we see, for example, the trend of deglobalization. Companies are more and more investigating different operating models. They consider producing something in the region they are actually going to sell the product. A good example, a best class example would be Procter & Gamble, who are already following this strategy for many years. And they really demonstrated how much more resilient their supply chain is in the last couple of years, especially during Corona, when countries like China were closing down, for example. And another example is growing demand. Of course, a positive trend, sounds very positive, is very positive. But it also leads to a lot of issues, especially combined with the volatility and demand uncertainty that we are seeing, that every business is basically facing. We at Industry Consulting, we are really supporting several clients at the moment who are currently dealing with this topic right now. Let me pick the last one, implementation of circularity and waste reduction. It's another trend that actually has a lot of impact on the end-to-end industrialization process. This topic is relatively new to most companies, but it needs to be addressed now in the very first development activity, so really in the beginning of the process, and it lasts until the end of the life of products. So this list is not complete, of course, just meant to give you a flavor of what's going on right now. But it also explains why there are many additional challenges today compared to the past. Now, besides all those new developments happening kind of outside of the company, businesses, of course, do still have their own issues, their own internal operational challenges. They need to deal with some new trends, or some new topics that comes on top of it. You saw it on the last slide. So, in the whole picture is just getting more and more, and the pressure and the challenges are becoming bigger. To name a few, customers, I think every customer becoming more and more demanding in terms of customized products, but also, of course, in terms of quality expectations. Me, myself, coming from the automotive industry, automotive supplier, I remember, tons of customer audits and assessments that we went through. And of course, every customer wants something different from you. So it brings a lot of additional effort to the company. Parts shortages in factories is a very hot topic right now, also for us, for Philips. And as an example, our order books are pretty full, I think higher than ever, but generating revenue out of these order books is currently very difficult due to material and part shortages across the globe. Cost competitiveness, again, nothing new, but is always a current topic for almost every business. And it comes again and again, year over year. As a supplier in countries like the Netherlands or Germany, you must increase productivity by around 4 to 5% a year to secure your business and to secure profitability. Labor costs are going high, energy is going higher, and so on. So you need to work against it and to increase your productivity by 4 to 5% annually. Yeah, so if we look at the just mentioned market trends and the related operational excellence or operational challenges that are only becoming more and more, it clearly shows that we need to rethink our way of working. Industrialization, or as we call it at Philips, idea to market excellence. So within Philips, we actually developed the whole process around it, idea to market excellence, is key now and will not be less important in the future. The different domains, capabilities are probably existing in most of the companies. The problem is that usually they exist in siloed pieces. So what was never efficient, those siloed capabilities and siloed work is just not enough anymore. So if we want to get out of this troubled water, if we want to bring some stability into operations, if we want to be able to use our resources to improve and innovate rather than troubleshooting, in our opinion, two things are important. One is really proactive early preparation, and the other one is end-to-end coverage of the process. So first, you need to take an industrialization perspective right from the start of your project. We call it the concept phase. So from really the first idea, industrialization should be a topic and should be addressed, because complexity comes by design. So what you design in the first place or what you think of in the first place could cause really a lot of trouble when products are entering manufacturing. So manufacturing can only deal with those things and try to solve them at the end. Thinking about where a product will be sold and therefore where it should be manufactured, by whom it should be manufactured, with what kind of machinery, technology, who are the key suppliers. If we are already considering those topics in the very first start, we will really gain a huge competitive advantage once it's entering manufacturing. And secondly, you need to maintain that industrialization perspective throughout the entire project. So from the beginning up until you stop servicing the product. Unlike in the past, where products were introduced in serial production for years, for many years, until end of production in one factory on one machine. Today, requirements are changing, customers are changing, technology is changing, and so we changes. There are more frequent changes, and we have to be able to address them. We have to be agile enough to address them. You might, for example, constantly compete with a second source. Just to back it up, you might compete with a second source of your customer, which keeps you constantly under pressure, and you have to constantly improve productivity or quality, maybe. So this is part of our understanding of industrialization. Yeah, so the classical approach is that after product development, perhaps there is prototyping, the industrialization step starts. R&D is developing usually a product isolated from the rest of the business. If you're lucky, there is a department called process development that is thinking about how this product should be manufactured, but they are also outside of manufacturing. So at the end of the day, manufacturing is left alone with the challenges to get a design product into serial production. Speaking out of experience, again, automotive industry is a very good example here. It's never a smooth journey, and it costs you a lot of efficiency. So everything you do wrong in the beginning, of course, everyone knows. cost a lot of money, but in real life, it's kind of a endless fight at the end. So it's very important to address that in the beginning. So based on this, we at Philips, we have formulated a new definition of industrialization. The role industrialization plays in the industry today is so crucial that we don't see it anymore as one single process step. So today it's not longer acceptable in the competitive world that we are in. So within Philips, the expectation is that we start a process like this and that we commercialize a product with a de-risked product design. That's how we call it. The de-risked product design by having really dedicated cross-functional teams in place from the very first beginning. The benefit of this end-to-end approach to industrialization is that it identifies not all, but most of the risks of any kind as early as possible, and then systematically reduces them as the project progresses. As explained previous, the end-to-end industrialization process is an integral process, starts with the first idea generation and does not end until end of life. The first step that we call concept development is much more than just first idea, first product idea. It's really about creating a value proposition, and that includes a business case. So therefore, the manufacturing strategy should be clear to some extent at least. So it should describe the target market. It should describe the critical factors to be successful. So the benefit of such a rigid investigation and a rigid approach is that we really avoid costly repair actions later on in the project. The second phase, advanced development. Here again, we are de-risking the value proposition to ensure that the technology readiness level of components and modules and the manufacturing readiness level of our manufacturing process is in place. Then the phase after is product and prototype development. Here, the product design will be challenged, optimized in various dimensions. You can think here of design for manufacturing, design for assembly, design for logistics, design for X, we call it, where we really, make sure that the design is not only beautiful and maybe technological, the right one, but also to be able to manufacture it well, to ship it well, and so on. Good example, best in class example here is IKEA. They are doing it for years and very well. Then we enter the manufacturing or production phase. Here the final manufacturing process and the entire supply chain is being activated. And in this phase, we need to achieve a rapid ramp up. We will see it later on how that looks like. And the last phase, the life cycle management, this is all about optimization. So here we really want to achieve operational excellence, and we want to improve everything constantly, continuously, to get the flexibility we need to work on different things after that. Yeah, with this, I would hand over to my colleague Tabe.
Thanks, Ram, for creating context and sharing an updated definition. In this slide, you see 3 successful Philips products. On the left-hand side, you see a CT scanner, a shaver, and an ultrasound system. And these 3 systems all differ, not only in terms of volume, but they also differ in terms of technology. And what's interesting, they also differ in terms of industrialization themes. If you talk about, for example, the CT scanner, the scanner consists of a lot of subcontracted modules, And in this case, it's very important in order to assemble these modules that a proper test strategy on module, sub-module level, but also on the final product, of course, is available. That needs to be prepared and looked at through the whole process rigorously. In case of the shaver, because it's a cost competitive, needs to be a cost competitive product, and customers demand different updates, say in short times. The platforming part is very important. So the industrialization platforming topic is something which is well thought through upfront and updated through the lifetime of the product. And last but not least, if you look at the ultrasound system, because of regional demand differences at customers, here it's very important that the design is modular and that changes can be adapted based on different customer requests. So also here upfront, you need to take care of the design. It needs to be suitable for the right production at suppliers. And yeah, in sum, if you look at this, then the question is, what ties it all together? Ram already touched upon it, is that this, of course, these successful products are tied up together because of the end-to-end industrialization approach we applied. And having said that, I'd like to switch to the next slide, is that based on these three examples we just explained, is that you might have noticed an important ingredient in the industrialization recipe, and that is the operation strategy. So, and the operation strategy, actually, if you look at it, it plays an important role in the whole industrialization discussion. And we consider part of the operations plan, the operation strategy is there are three topics: the manufacturing plan, a data plan, and a supply chain plan. And we'd like to go in detail through these plans. And now I'd like to hand it over back to Ram, our manufacturing specialist, who will first explain what's behind the manufacturing plan. Ram, please go ahead.
Yeah, so on the left side, you see probably a typical launch journey, like 80% of the companies are most likely experiencing, where no clear manufacturing plan was developed from the beginning. And that means no early involvement of customers, no early involvement of procurement, manufacturing, quality, etc. So investing time and effort at the front end to identify and to address risks and issues was not there, obviously. And the result of this is really a long glide path with all possible issues popping up after the start of production. So you see the number of issues is going up enormously after the manufacturing is starting and everyone realizing that it doesn't work how it was planned. So that's how it is usually. That's how it shouldn't be. You see a very long ramp up time. On the right side, you see the benefits of an early involvement of all the functions that I just mentioned above, and of course more. Many issues are eliminated at the beginning of the process. If you follow our idea to market excellence approach, you try again to de-risk the product and the launch, and the result is that most of the issues should appear in the beginning, and then when you enter manufacturing, there are a few left, of course, but far less than on the left side. So that means all materials are available and tested. Maybe packaging is there and tested. Key standards are defined and in place. Operators and technicians are trained, are ready to produce, and the result is really a very quick ramp up time, means achieving performance targets within a few days or maybe a few weeks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ram, for explaining the manufacturing plan approach. Let's now switch to the data plan approach. And I can tell you that not so long ago, most of our customers took data and data availability more or less for granted. That has changed. And the usage and the goals of data in general, now clearly belong, in our view, to an operations strategy, an operations plan. And if we talk about data, then three main goals can be defined. So consider data to be used first for driving improvements. So if you talk about improvements in general, nowadays it's really important. It's not only a matter of designing a SharePoint. It's nowadays also very important to think about the architecture of data lakes in order to determine trends which will most probably help you to improve your business. And for example, if you talk about data usage for compliance reasons, we as Philips, we work in the medical health tech market. We know that, and we need to have data available in order to show and be compliant with rules and regulations. So that also needs to be designed and determined upfront. And last but not least, in case you consider to change your business model, for example, if you have a regular business model and you'd like to introduce a service type of business, then the data related to that service type of business also needs to be available. So in sum, there are three good reasons to think about a proper plan with respect to your data. And of course, each of these areas we support it with a proper process in order to design it, indicated on the right-hand side of this slide, to build it, to process it, and to consider end-of-life aspects. Okay, now, and that is of course a plan which can't, it's a very important part of the operation strategy, and that's of course the supply chain plan. Normally we start telling and saying it's about planning, source, make, and deliver. In this case, we left out planning deliberately, and I'd like to focus on the source, make, and deliver. Actually, I'd like to start with the make, because what is really important is in your business, you need to first determine what is your sustainable competitive advantage. And as soon as you have that clear and you really defined the core, the things you like to design or need to design, the items you and issues you need to produce or manufacture, that is the starting point of a discussion with your future suppliers. If you decided to leave it up to the supplier and ask them to design, then you have a different discussion than when you provide design to a contract manufacturer. But in sum, it's about upfront determining with whom do you want to work and what type of support do you need. On the deliver side, it's the same type of discussion. Depending on your model, your operations model, do you use a make to stock or a make to engineer type of model, and the volumes you'd like to produce, the delivery option, the discussion you'd like to start with a possible service provider, logistic service provider, determines what type of support you need from these suppliers. So in sum, the supply chain plan is needed in order to secure a proper supply base for your business. Next slide, please. I hope after all these definitions and a short update about the operation strategy that our approach starts to resonate. and that the picture becomes clearer what we how we look at end-to-end industrialization. What we also that's what I'd like to focus on here is the manufacturing phase and the life phase of a product is also a phase where industrialization needs to stay on the agenda. And while we worked with Philips teams, but also with external customers, we discovered that if you look at the use of tools and approaches, that actually two parameters are very important in order to determine what type of actions we need to take and what type of discussions we need to start with customers. And these two parameters are business maturity plays a very important role. Is the business mature or not mature, unstable, stable, and the product process maturity. Do we talk about a new product, or do we talk about already products which we produce for quite some time, let's call it existing. In the matrix you see in this slide, actually we call it the industrialization matrix. We identified 4 strategies in order to support the customer. 4 strategies which are used in a specific way. But first let me shortly touch upon that. So we see in case of the situation on the bottom left-hand side, or if you talk about a new product and an unstable business, it's first about stabilization. If you proceed well, then you end up automatically in the scale-up area, and then we talk about, as Ram already explained, talk about possibly transfers, but different type of actions and also different type of KPIs are advised to use in order to improve the business. And if you proceed well, then automatically, and that is indicated also by 2 routes through the matrix, you end up in the continuous improvement transformation. And so these 2 routes, please can you show some animation? And the next one, please. Thank you. The first one I explained, the light blue arrow is the route you normally take in case you start with a somewhat unstable situation and you proceed well through this matrix. However, what also happens is that there are, as also explained, nowadays things are not really stable, things change. So also companies and customers aren't able to keep it stable, and sometimes they end up in the bottom right-hand corner, the area where not only content, design and supply chain plans, etc. need to be discussed, but also organizational issues, even quality issues and delivery issues. So to underpin this to underpin this approach and the way how we work with this, I'd like to switch to the next slide. And there I'd like to take you through a couple of examples which we applied and used at customers. As explained, let's start again the bottom left-hand side. If you talk about, say, optimizing the stability of a certain product or process, then what we see is a lot of customers struggle in this area with the fact that the product is not, there are too many options, the customization possibilities are limited, and in this case we work with a customer for a limited amount of time, a quarter plus, to identify the areas of where are we able to improve the customization items, and also introducing options like a better platform in order to optimize not only the product in the future, but also being able and more flexible in order to support production in the future. If you continue upwards, as mentioned earlier, That's the area where most of the companies think about either outsourcing or transfers. We have a lot of examples related to that. And switching to the top right-hand corner, that's an interesting area as well. As soon as a company is in the area of continuous improvements, then it's also the area, if that is working well, the area where companies can consider, actually it's a prerequisite, I would say, to think about industrialization 4.0. So here in this area, we also worked with companies in order to improve the automation or the connectivity. Actually, those are agendas linked to topics like digital transformation. And last but not least, and that is the difficult area in terms of investments and time, is if a company is not stable and ends up in this bottom right-hand quadrant, then it takes quite some time to figure out what's going on and what needs to be improved. So here we worked with a company who faced, say, output. The output was too low and too much quality problems exist. They asked us to come up with a plan, work together with them in order to improve the scrap rates, reduce the customer complaints, and improve the OEE and the OTIF KPIs. Looking at all of this, looking at the industrialization matrix, the approach, I think, and let me finish with that, industrialization is more or less an old-fashioned topic, but it's a very difficult topic as well. And it's not only difficult in itself, but it's also a topic depending on the situation the customer is in, the type of tools and approaches need to be adapted. And but I think what is really important and is that, and above all, is that the industrialization topic, you need to do it right. Think about your preparation, do and prepare things upfront, and of course take it end to end in order to become successful and create a sustainable situation. With this, I'd like to hand over back to Bas. Bas, please.
Yes, thank you, Tabe. Thank you, Ram, for sharing your insights with us. I think industrialization is indeed, on the one hand side, maybe a mature topic, but it's very relevant in today's business. So if you, based on this webinar, would like to have more information, please do reach out to us. You can find us on our website. You have our personal email addresses, so you can reach out for us. There's several ways that we can help you. We can help you with a consultancy type of service, give you advice on how to organize your industrialization effort, how to implement those practices. But we can also work with you on technology level, product development, process development, manufacturing equipment. So we are both a consultancy company and an engineering company. If you are one level higher in the journey already, if you have a live industrialization project that you really would want to optimize, we offer you the following option. We have typically 3 vouchers available for a workshop. We can do that in company, depending where you are. We can do it on site or via a Teams event like this one. We can customize the contents for you, and that could maybe be a good starting point for you to introduce these concepts in your company without having to go through a lot of investment or a lot of hassle. We can help you take that first hurdle. That is what these vouchers are intended for. So please do reach out to us and apply for one, and we will gladly consider your request based on our ability to serve, basically. So that brings us to the end of the webinar, indeed, to the questions and answers section. I don't know if there's any questions from the attendance at this moment. We have received several questions up front before the webinar, so maybe as a good starting point, I'll address a couple of those questions. First question I received: how can you demonstrate the value of an optimized end-to-end industrialization process? What is it worth? How does it have value? Well, that's for me. That's also a personal conviction. I don't know how Tabe and Ram see that, but I think it absolutely makes sense. If you can shorten your development times, it has value because you reduce your R&D spending. If you optimize the manufacturability of your product, you have a higher manufacturing yield, then that has a very direct bottom line effect. And also, if you can avoid quality issues, I think it's a no-brainer that quality issues cost money, but they also affect your brand image. So if you really master the art of industrialization and you can improve your performance on those areas, R&D spending, manufacturing yield, quality issues, then that absolutely brings value. I don't know if anything to add, Tabe, Ram, to that to complete that view. Yeah,
I think you said everything that needs to be said.
Okay, thank you. I take that as a compliment. Yeah. We have another question about the use of data. This company is struggling with the Industry 4.0 approach. And there's a lot of information available on internet, on a lot of advice on Industry 4.0, the vision, but they are facing problems with the translation into of the high-level concept into practical use. What is our view on that? Yeah, but that is a question. I recognize the question because everybody wants to do something with data and to really pull it off and have a starting point that's sometimes difficult. But as soon as you have the starting point, define the objective, what you want to achieve, then it becomes easier. And as we saw in the webinar, there are three objectives: data-driven improvements, demonstrating medical compliance, or making a new business model out of it. And once you have that, then you can define what data you need to achieve that and how you can collect those data. So then you can bring structure to the process. But I recognize that it's sometimes hard to make a business case out of it because the benefits are hard to quantify. The costs are a lot easier to quantify than the benefits. So what we usually advise to companies is start small, create sort of a playground for yourself, experiment and learn to appreciate the benefits. And that's usually a very good starting point. We've done a similar journey in Philips, and as we speak, we see a lot of benefits now. We benefit greatly from data-driven improvements or data-driven decision making. So it definitely pays off, I would say. Yes. Are there any further questions? And if there are no further questions, then I would like to thank you very kindly for your attendance. Indeed, I'd like to bring to your attention again the opportunity to ask for a voucher. And yes, we look forward to hearing from you on that. We are excited having had the opportunity to bring this webinar to you, and we are keen to continue working with you on this interesting topic. Thank you very much and enjoy your day.